And also the
governing body member, Suniti Abi, may I request you to come up on stage. I'd like to request Archana Garodia Gupta, floor president, to give a memento to Suniti.
thank you for sponsoring the lunch, which I will thank you.
I would now like to request Archana Garodia Gupta, floor president, to make her welcome address.
So, good morning. I think all of us have braved the traffic of Delhi and reached here well on time. So welcome to today's program, Mantras for Success. I'd like to welcome Mr. Suhail Seth and Ms. Suhasini Haider to the program today, and our members on the dais, members in the audience and the media. So success is a relative term that carries a unique definition for each and every individual, but we will hear more on this from Mr. Seth. We have amidst us two most successful personalities in their respective areas. May I introduce them? Suhail Seth is the founder of Equus and the managing partner, Council Age India, the only strategic brand management and marketing consultancy in the country, advising the who's who of Indian industry on branding and marketing. He is a regular speaker at industry meets and lectures at various Indian institutes of management. Author of the best-selling book, Get to the Top, Suhail also writes columns in the Financial Times, London, Business India, Hindustan Times, and the Indian Express. He has co-authored 2 books on Kolkata with Khushwant Singh and R.K. Lakshman, and all of us are familiar with him as an extremely witty and interesting speaker and very controversial. We're looking forward to a lot of fireworks, Mr. Seth. Suhasini Haider is the diplomatic affairs editor of The Hindu. She has covered foreign affairs for more than 20 years as a correspondent for CNN International South Asia Bureau, and then as foreign editor for the CNN IBN TV network. She has covered conflict in the region, traveling frequently to Pakistan, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, and beyond to West Asia, including Syria, Libya, and Lebanon, and has won several awards for her coverage. Welcome to a truly empowered woman. Mr. Seth has penned the book Mantras for Success, which has India's greatest CEOs and business leaders highlighting how they established their corporations and reached the current standards of excellence. His experience with the czars of Indian business will be highly insightful for the members and enrich us about the right ways to create a roadmap for success. So I would like to thank here Ms. Ritu Vadera for putting together the program, Ms. Vinita Bimbet, Senior Vice President, for flying down from Mumbai for it and for her tremendous support, and Ms. Suniti Abi, Governing Body Member, for hosting the lunch today, and in particular our past presidents who are here to support us. Thank you so much. Over to Vinita.
So Hasni, I hand it over to you to take the morning forward.
Thanks a lot, Vinita ji and Archana ji. And of course, as Archana ji described me, foreign policy, works on diplomacy, covers conflict and all the rest. I was thinking I'm so not the right person to be engaging Suhail this morning, or maybe I am. I mean, given the amount of conflict Suhail tends to spread on television when we watch him. I mean, the truth is, as he was being described and he was being introduced, I looked around the room and I could see you all nodding when they said he's a famous face. I mean, the truth is Suhail is probably just short of a waxwork in Madame Tussauds at this present moment. And I'm sure he's actually had real photos taken with all the people that are already over there. And it's also true that he's everywhere all at once. I mean, Sohail has been described as ubiquitous by a lot of people, but the truth is that he will be in Delhi, New York, Paris all in one day, and then find a way of being on your TV screens in the evening, and then possibly go on to a dinner where you might meet him as well. So he does find a way of being everywhere and giving the impression of just, a bon vivant, of being in the good life. But the truth is, the little that I've followed of Sohail's writings and a lot of what he says, that does hide somebody who does work very hard. Just that I think he enjoys it more than most people do. He knows more people, I think, than our parliament of politicians, if you put them together. And I would say that the combined wealth of the people that he knows probably rivals the GDPs of some countries. And finally, he knows a thing or two about success, which is why this book that he brings out, which is not his first book on the subject, I think the last one was on social success, and this is on mantras for success, is well put. The idea that you can put all these people together who have not just been successful only, who've faced failure in life, but have also been successful, and get something out of it which perhaps makes whoever's reading it think a little bit. It might not change your life immediately to know how somebody else has dealt with a challenge in life, but it gives you that little insight into somebody who you do admire. And the people that Sohail has chosen for his book really are people who are admired, widely across all spheres. So if I could just start by asking you, Sohail, we always hear that phrase that we learn more from our failures than we do from our success. But nobody ever writes about failures. I mean, we don't have a book that says, the top 10 business bombs or, bubbles that went bust sort of thing. It's always about people who are now doing fabulous.
I think that's a great question. In fact, I've addressed it in the opening essay. Very rarely will you see a mother tell another lady that I'm so delighted my son just failed. I think it's an Indian thing. It's a very Indian thing. It's not an American thing. In America, you drop out of school, people don't write you off. In America, you fail, people don't write you off. Steve Jobs was ousted from Apple, came back, no one thought about it. In India, we are very unforgiving about failure. Take the example of Vijay Mallya. Employees not paid, blah, 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 unforgivable. But for God's sake, you can't judge a man by the last company that failed. I mean, he built a brand, no matter what you might say. He built Kingfisher. He was given nothing by his dad. The rumors or the suggestion by media, and other than you, most of those in the media, absolute idiots. They don't read.
On behalf of all of them, I beg to differ.
No, but I'll tell you, okay, let's get on to that for a minute before we come back to this. You have editors today who are on television walking. They're not very writing editorials. Most of the editors use incorrect grammar. Their research is flawed. I mean, these are the kind of people then casting judgment. Nowadays you don't read a newspaper with spectacles. You need a hosepipe because there's a plant on every page. And these are the people who decry the failures that we see around us, at least in the corporate world. So you're right. We don't talk about failure, but I think it's important to address failure in the context of what it teaches you rather than how thwarting it is in a manner of speaking. Ratan talks about it. Anand Mahindra talks about it. Ratan Tata was a failed human being when he came into business. Rusi Modi famously said, "This man can't run Nelco. What the hell will he do with Telco?" And this is Rusi Modi's famous saying. But having said all of that, the reality is that we are also in India great lappers of other people's success. If a guy who hasn't lived in India all his life, but is of Indian origin and wins the Nobel Prize, he'll get a Bharat Ratna. Now, Kailash Satyarthi, who's won the Nobel, will get a civilian honor very soon. Once this government, stops killing Muslims and actually focuses on the real task.
Sahil, am I supposed to moderate you here because it's becoming extremely difficult?
I'm just saying, in a manner of speaking. So the point, therefore, I'm making is that you need a situation where, to my mind, even our present day government and previous governments, to move away from divisiveness and actually to promote and incubate innovation. We're not having that in the country. You look at Anand Mahindra's stories. I mean, Satyam was a failed business, as we all know. Completely failed. Got the business, turned it around. Today, it's the fourth largest IT business in India. So there are these success stories which have actually emerged from, to my mind, the cauldron of failure. But what we see as human beings and the media is the cladding of success around it rather than the work that it took to actually get out. Look at the problems with India. You have banks that give you loans with great difficulty if you're a young entrepreneur with no backing. You're seeing it around. And yet today you have a situation where Yes Bank has got a stricture against it by UBS for loans which are beyond 125% of its balance sheet. Now, no one talks about these things because, on the one hand, there's a lot of success riding it. So, like most societies, we're great lovers of success. We adulate it. We try and emulate it. But we believe that failure is something that needs to be looked down upon. Almost everyone in that book, other than Mukesh, I would imagine, has tasted failure before success in some measure or the other, or has come to terms with failure. The difference between Mukesh and the rest is, and you've got to understand the psyche of a Mukesh Ambani, he is a long haul player. So he's the only marathon runner other than Mr. Tata, I would imagine, in today's corporate environment. Ratan is no longer active. But in a real sense, he's the long haul player. So he allowed retail to bleed. He says, it will turn, and it's turned. So, a lot of it is also because of, in a corporate sense, and most of you would know since, your husbands are in the corporate world, there's too much of pressure every quarter by analysts. And that is dampening a lot of the risk-taking that used to be prevalent in an Indian situation. That's not happening.
All right. Not to push the point, but even in your book, you've stayed away from the people who are seen as failures today. So you write about Anand Mahindra picking up Satyam, but not about Ramalinga Raju. You write about other successes that have come out of failures, but not about Vijay Mallya. He's not in this book. The question I really want to ask is, do people learn from other people's successes?
Okay, so let me first answer the first part of your question. If you look at the title, it doesn't say, mantras for failure. I mean, the book is mantras for success. Why the hell should I write about failure? I'm not a